how long, realistically, would someone have to train in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to be successful at an actual violent encounter? I know this is kind of a loose question, hard to answer, but... Say again?
6 months.
6 months? Okay.
Yeah, if a student trains us for 6 months, Gracie Combatives, a student who completes the Gracie Combatives program, now some guys do it in as fast as 6 months, most take about 1 year to, maybe, 14 to 18 months. It depends on how often you train. But if you train every day for 6 months, Gracie Combatives, and you get in a fight, my money's on you.
I mean, is this an hour, 2 hours? How many hours a day?
Yeah, normally it's 1 hour a day. We have students who train 1 hour a day every day for 6 months, 5 days a week, and they are street ready, as we call it. The Gracie Combatives is, without question, the fastest way to street readiness, no question. And it's not, it's not a boastful or arrogant statement. It's just a fact because of the techniques we're doing. What happens is this: in a fight, there are, based on the studies of hundreds of fights that the Gracie family has conducted over the last 85 years, which we've documented. We have documented more real fights, than most people can imagine. And with all of those fights documented by all members of the family, we looked at all the videos, looked at all the records, and we noticed reoccurring patterns of movements and techniques that were used, and reoccurring patterns of bad guy movements, the bad guy behaviors. We noticed that there aren't 1,000 moves being used in all these fights. There aren't even 100. When we counted and we narrowed it down, there were 36 techniques being used more often and with greater success than all the other techniques combined of the entire art. So even though Jiu-Jitsu has almost 1,000 techniques, 700 to 1,000 techniques, only 36 were being used in real fights, reoccurring with high effectiveness against larger opponents for the last 85 years. So we realized, and this whole investigation began at the request of the U.S. Army in 1994, when they asked my father to develop a program that would prepare soldiers for hand-to-hand combat in the least amount of time possible. That's when we went to the drawing board and began this investigation. Then it surfaced, the 36 techniques, and we began teaching those to the Army. We continuously refined them based on their needs, and then we finally said, man, if we're using this incredible program to prepare soldiers for hand-to-hand combat in the absolute least amount of time possible, and it's being adopted by the whole U.S. Army, which it now is 1.2 million soldiers, if that's the case, why aren't we teaching the same program to the general public for maximum street effectiveness in the least amount of time possible? And we did it. We released Gracie Combatives to the general public, about 5 or 7 years ago, and we started teaching here at the house at the Gracie Academy headquarters for several years successfully, and once we nailed it down to a science to where basically we had it. The students were coming in and they were getting prepared for street self-defense more rapidly than we ever thought possible. We finally decided to export the curriculum and begin certifying other schools to teach this exact curriculum to the T. At their own schools, and whether that be a taekwondo school, or karate school, or kickboxing, or judo school, whatever the school might be, we're now certifying instructors from other organizations to bring Gracie Combatives, and then eventually the rest of the curriculum, to bring Gracie Combatives into their schools and teach it with our blessing and in 100% the same format that a student would experience here at the Gracie Academy. Now, why that's so powerful is because we get, thousands of inquiries each month from people all over the country and all over the world asking for the most legitimate training centers in their communities. People always ask, Rener, or they call the academy, or I talk to me or one of my, representatives and say, Rener, where's the best place for me to train in, Arkansas or North Carolina? And, up until we released the Gracie Combatives curriculum to the certified, until we started certifying instructors in that program, there really wasn't a way for us to endorse other schools because we didn't know that they were teaching to the standards, and teaching correctly. But now that we have this program and certification system in place, we know that they're offering exactly what we're showing here at home, and that's very confidence for us. And for the students, it's just great because they know they're getting the same quality wherever they live, Okay. And now we have certified training centers, several in the country here and dozens outside the country in other countries around the world. So it's growing faster than ever, and it will continue to do so.
Okay. The next two questions really kind of talk about the character of people. And I know these are kind of deep questions, but I mean, these are coming from other experienced martial artists and what questions they probably haven't heard from the Gracie family in the past. But one is, do you believe that everyone should learn Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or martial arts? Now, this is what's underlined. In general, no matter the character.
Great question. Everyone should have the opportunity to be introduced to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Now, that is because no matter what your character is, when you begin training Gracie Jiu-Jitsu under the Gracie family and with our training methods, now I can't speak on anybody else's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training methods because I don't know how they teach and what type of values they promote. But within the Gracie Academy organization and its certified training centers, yes, we don't limit participation or entry to anyone regardless of what their history is. You can be an ex-con, you can come into the Gracie Academy and we'll accept you to begin the learning process because no matter what your character is, it will evolve for the better in our guidance and under our tutelage. Someone can't come to class every day, learn the gentle techniques of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and train with training partners in a cooperative, friendly, respectful, disciplined environment that we've created and not become a better person. People are products of their environment, and there's no better environment for character development than the Gracie Academy. Now, that being said, if someone trained in the Gracie Academy for an extended period of time and they simply can't fit the mold and they can't fall into the groove of the discipline and the respect and the honor and the courtesy that is so widespread and so heavily promoted within the academy, if they simply can't fit that mold, then we have to realize that they could be a hazard to the students at the academy and to society as a whole by empowering them with this incredible toolbox of potentially dangerous techniques. So we would then limit or restrict or suspend their participation. So everyone deserves a chance, but depending on how their character evolves once they're given that chance will determine whether their privileges continue at the Gracie Academy.
Okay, very well said. Are there any spiritual concepts in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that you guys teach that can help, a better fighter become a better martial artist and human being?
Yes. Every Tuesday night at the Gracie Academy we have a philosophy class, and that is where we try to make connections between the physical techniques we teach on a daily basis and the applicability of the mind-body-spirit connection and the applicability of this incredible growth they're experiencing on the outside. How should their jiu-jitsu growth be affecting their everyday life? And that can be, of course, in thousands of different ways. But this last Tuesday, for example, we were having a philosophy discussion, and ultimately, it was about overcoming impossibilities. And really, I asked the students, I said, guys and girls, why do you come here every day? Why do you come to class every day? Especially those of you who have learned self-defense. You are confident in your ability to defend yourself in a physical altercation against a larger, more athletic opponent. Now that you've achieved that goal, why are you still coming every day? What's in it for you? And they shared, amongst other things, the fact that every day they come to class at the Gracie Academy, we present them with a new impossibility. Something that, like a headlock, for example. For those who have not learned the escapes for the headlock that we teach, when I put you in a headlock, you're not getting out. If you don't know the Gracie way to escape the headlock the correct way, you're not going to escape my headlock. So what you have there is you have an impossible situation for those who don't have the technique. And then we teach them the technique, right? So everyone in the room who didn't know the move, who, I guess, essentially who categorized that problem as an impossible problem, once they learn the technique and they realize with a little bit of leverage, better positioning, patience, and energy efficiency, they can easily overcome the situation that they previously identified as impossible. So that starts to reprogram them in terms of what is possible and what is not. And that's the most confidence-inducing experience one can undergo, to really just keep chopping down the internal barriers that you set for yourself. Now, how that transfers into everyday life, goes without being said. I mean, you go into life now, any relationship, business, financial, any challenge or obstacle in your life, rather than accepting it for being impossible at face value, you immediately, as a Gracie Academy student, you begin to question, wait a minute, this might seem impossible at first, but where is the leverage, where is the patience, and where is the technique that makes this situation less impossible or totally overcomable with ease? So it's just a matter of looking at things from a different angle, and so what happens, we instill such a real confidence that is applicable to any field. If nothing else, we give them the confidence to know that what seems challenging or impossible at first, most certainly and almost always has something, a certain way that simply you haven't discovered yet that can help you overcome that scenario, you know? And I think that is the greatest value. When you talk about the spiritual benefit, you know, basically you go back when you come out of the Gracie Academy and you re-enter civilization, I guess, through everyday life, you go with a whole new confidence and level of belief in terms of what you're capable of. That nothing really is impossible. You know, whether it be a personal fight to lose weight, quit smoking, or be a better father, or whatever, or a business, you know, or any other relationship goal, you definitely realize that with patience, technique, and timing, and leverage, anything is possible.
Awesome. Back in the 1990s and early 2000s, I became fascinated with Kazushi Sakuraba. Why do you think he was so successful against the Gracie family?
Because he used all of our techniques against us.
I mean, do you think that he heavily researched you guys beforehand, or he just knew?
He trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all over the world. That's all he does. Kazushi Sakuraba, they call it pro wrestling, right, in Japan, submission wrestling, call it what you want.
Mm-hmm.
When the UFC started in '94, from the time the UFC started to the time of when he fought with Horace and the other Gracies, 10 years later, about when it happened, right, in the early 2000s, by the time that he's been training Jiu-Jitsu for 10 years. He's a black belt Jiu-Jitsu already. So he goes in there totally familiar with everything Gracie, everything Jiu-Jitsu. Now, he didn't come to the Gracie Academy and study with us, but he studied with students of the family in Japan, in America. He's traveling all over the world learning this stuff. So it's not that he has a special martial art that makes him invincible or, have his chances better. He's just learning what we learned. And that was the inevitable reality of exposing the UFC to the world. It was just a matter of time before, the Matt Hugheses, the Sakurabas, you name it, before these guys on the outside who, are essentially competitors against the family, it was just a matter of time before they learned all of what the family has to offer, since we're teaching the world. That's the whole purpose of the Gracie family existence, is to teach the world Jiu-Jitsu. And these professional fighters just happen to be the first ones to catch on. So they learned it, and they know how to defend against it. And since they're more athletic, that's the advantage they have. The Gracies aren't an athletic family. We're not a family of athletes. We're not sportsmen. We're not professional athletes. The reason Gracies exist was because of the opposite. We're weak. My grandfather's a freaking weak, he would say it himself. He's the most, physically pathetic person he knew, yet that was the reason why he developed his stuff. So once this incredible art that was developed by and for the weak is adopted by the athletically gifted, guess what you have? You have a dangerous combination.
Right.
And that's what the world is coming to today. All of MMA, all professional fighters, everyone learns Jiu-Jitsu, and they're athletically gifted, so it's a powerful combination. And to go in there now and compete against them, you're essentially competing against yourself.
Right.
But you're a Gracie. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So when Hoist fought Matt Hughes, Hoist didn't fight Matt Hughes. Hoist fought Hoist Gracie. He fought 15 or 10 years earlier, taught the whole world in secrets. Everyone's learning it, and then go in there and try to test yourself against someone who's been studying you rigorously for the last 10, 15 years through students and representatives of family members. Everyone's learning and teaching this stuff, and then you go back and test yourself against someone who's, physically the specimen of a, of a beast, and you have the technique now. What do you expect to happen? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's purely an entertainment spectacle now. It has no educational value in terms of Hoist going in there, winning or losing. Yeah, you might learn a cool arm like here or there, but people don't watch the UFC now and think to themselves, wow, I really relate to that guy right there. I relate to Matt Hughes. Nobody relates to Matt Hughes. They look at Matt Hughes and they're scared. They look at Chuck Liddell and they think, wow, what an animal. People watch the UFC today with the same disconnect that they watch professional football or basketball. It's just entertainment. It's just cool to watch, and you appreciate their athleticism and their abilities and their technical skill. But that's it. You're like, okay, these guys are great, but you don't feel like, wow, I could be doing that. And that's the only problem with MMA, is that people don't connect to it for their personal self, except for the small population, of course, which go ahead and study and become fighters, and, you know, the young bucks who want to go through professional fighters. But for the most part, you're not getting a lot of, you know, older, out of shape, you know, people who we love to teach. We pride ourselves at the Academy in teaching all the people who would never fit in at a regular MMA fight club. We like the older, the out of shape, the men, the women, the non-athletes. Who cares if you can teach Brock Lesnar? What does that say about your teaching? Nothing.
Right.
What matters if you can teach, you know, the 60-year-old attorney and get him to be able to defend himself against a 25-year-old punk. That's my goal, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Besides teaching and training in the martial arts, what are some of the things that you yourself like to do in your spare time?
Go to the beach.
Is that just there in Southern California, or do you like to go back to Brazil? Or
Negative, sir. I go to the beach right here in front of my house. I'm looking at the beach right now as we talk.
Sweet. I'm jealous, man.
I'll take a picture. You can put it in the article if you want. No, so I'm living on the beach. We're down the beach in Southern California, and man, it's just a privilege. You know, it's like, you know, just when you, as my father says, when you run because you like it, you don't get tired. You know what I'm saying? And,
yeah.
You know, or the other one, you know, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. So for me, it's like I'm never trying to get away from the martial arts. I'm trying to figure out ways to further myself within it. You know, and it's like I teach, I reach, I spread the word. I make comprehensive video curriculum so that people around the world can have access to this incredible art, and I do it to the best of my ability. And I've been trained my whole life just so I can communicate this art to other people. And I just try to make the most of the gift that I've been given, the opportunity gift and the technical gift, you know. Both of those have to be in alignment for me to fulfill my potential. And that's all I'm chasing every single day, is just, you know, become more of what I know I can be, and help as many people as possible when I do it, so that, you know, hopefully, you know, when my time is up, I'll have left, you know, some significant impact on some lives, you know, around the world, and that's all anybody can really hope for.
Awesome, man. Do you have time for a bonus question?
Sure.
Bonus question. Okay. Now, this is purely fantasy or whatever. I mean, you can make it out to be reality, I'm sure. But you've got 6 months to train. The money's on the table. Who would you personally have a go at if you could have anybody living or dead?